Someone once asked Isabel why she endured so much just to keep living. The maid stood before her, hands braced on her hips, awaiting an answer. It was all for the ball hosted by Count Grey. No one had ordered her to do it, yet she'd been working without proper rest for an entire week. She did it simply because she was surviving. The other maids whispered behind her back, saying she came from the slums. No matter how hard she scrubbed, they claimed she still looked filthy. Among them, she stood out as the low-born girl from the streets, the easy target everyone picked on. But she was used to that kind of treatment. It no longer made her angry. She believed that if she just knew her place, she could live safely with her daughter. But that hope shattered. In the end, all her efforts were worthless. She was accused of murdering Countess Grey and sentenced to die in the cruelest way, leaving Margarita behind. Dragged to the square, she faced the executioner's whip. The moment the whip rose to strike, her eyes flew open. She jolted upright in bed, chest heaving. The last memory she had was being lashed in the square. Confused, she glanced down at her body. Her hands were clean, almost unfamiliar. Pulling back the blanket, she noticed her leg was bandaged. That made no sense. Her back had taken the worst of the beating. Why did her legs hurt instead? A tight coil of unease wound through her as she rose unsteadily and moved toward a mirror only to freeze at the sight of her own reflection. Before she could make sense of it, approaching footsteps made her flinch. The door opened, and someone stepped in, announcing that she was finally awake. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. She seized the stranger by the neck and slammed him against the wall. He struggled for breath, and reality crashed over her. She let go immediately, horrified. She stared down at her hands, unsettled by how they'd acted without her will. The man collapsed, coughing. She rushed to help him, asking if he was hurt. Shielding himself, he stammered that he was a doctor and had found her collapsed in an alley before bringing her here for treatment. She apologized, saying she was only being cautious, and then asked why he had been in a place like that. After a pause, she asked if he knew how she ended up there. He seemed taken aback but said he didn't know much, only the state she was in. She'd been shot in the thigh. The wound was a mere graze and would heal quickly, but the real danger was the lethal poison running through her veins. Without a cure, she had at most 1 year left. For a moment, she wondered if she'd taken too many blows to the head she had died, yet here she was, alive, in a different body. The doctor admitted he'd never encountered such a poison before and couldn't begin to make an antidote. She suspected it was something rare and traceable. He warned that any other physician would likely reach the same conclusion. So, she thought bitterly, she was going to die again, only this time, she had a year to wait for it. Pressing a hand to her wounds, she confirmed the pain was real, which meant this reality was real too. The original her was gone, and now she had been granted a second life in someone else's skin. It was insane, but she understood enough to know what she needed to do next. She had to find her daughter Margarita. She knows Rita might not recognize her anymore, and that's fine. She may not be her mother in this life, but she can still protect her. All she needs is to teach her how to survive on her own within a year. Or find someone trustworthy who can guard her until she comes of age. Her thoughts drift. What point in time is this? Is it right after her original death? If so, then Rita wouldn't know anything yet. She quickly asks the doctor if it's December in the year 800. His brows lift in surprise. Did she mean 810? That makes her freeze. He repeats it. According to the Maggard imperial calendar, it's February, year 810. The realization crashes over her. It has been 10 years and 2 months since her death. Rita was 10 back then, meaning she's 20 now. For 10 years, her daughter has survived alone in a world merciless even to grown adults. The question bursts from her before she can stop it. Is Rita alive? Is she safe? She asks the doctor for a newspaper, and he points to the table. She grabs it without hesitation. She needs information, everything she can get. No matter what it takes, she will find her daughter. Her one and only. Her gaze falls to the front page, and her breath catches. Rita, she blurts before she can stop herself. And if she considered both motive and capability, the real murderer of Diana Gray could very well have been her own husband. Rita would have known that. She remembers that night there was a knock on the door, strange at such an hour. A voice called for Isabel, one she didn't recognize. She told her daughter to hide, framing it as a game of hide and seek. As Rita slipped away, the knocking grew louder, accompanied by a shout to open the door. Before she could react, the door burst open and armored knights stormed in. Shocked, she demanded to know who dared enter without permission, but one seized her wrist and forced her to her knees, announcing her arrest for Countess Gray's murder. She shouted that she was innocent, that she had nothing to do with it. From the closet, unseen, her daughter witnessed everything. In the square, without evidence, witnesses, or even a chance to speak, the whipping began. All because Count Grey had pointed her out as the killer. He grabbed her hair, hissing for her to stop resisting and just die. But she had shouted back, declaring for all to hear that he had promised to pay her a great sum for doing what he asked, and now he had to keep his word. If she was going to die, she would not let her child inherit her shame. Before her final breath, one ridiculous thought crossed her mind. If she had known it would end like this, she would have made more stew. She's certain the Diana Gray murder was front-page news. Back then, she was still teaching Rita to read. Rita must have seen it. Could her daughter be seeking revenge now? Later, she thanks the doctor for all he's done, but he asks where she'll go from here. She shows him the advertisement in the paper. Count Gray's capital townhouse is hiring temporary maids for the social season. She casually asks why he saved her. He admits she reminded him of his sister, who lives far away, and that she would have died if he left her there. He is a doctor, after all. She thanks him sincerely. Smiling, he wishes her safe travels and calls after her, reminding her to take the painkillers he packed in to stay safe. Elsewhere, onlookers whisper about the officers in the streets. The talk is of a thief who broke into Duke Mirabelle's estate the previous night. Rumor has it the intruder was after confidential documents. Isabel senses something isn't right. Good thing she kept her hat on. She'll need to avoid drawing notice. The officers are stopping women with her new body's height and hair color. Judging by the timing, she suspects the intruder was likely this body's previous owner. The doctor had probably panicked when the rumors began to spread. Thankfully, she changed clothes beforehand. They'll surely check passengers before boarding. She needs to lose them first. Scanning the board, she notices that trains bound for the south run in the opposite direction of the capital. If she pretends to board one, she can draw the officer's attention before slipping onto a train to the capital. She hurries to the reception desk and urgently asks for a ticket on the southbound line. The clerk says it leaves in 1 minute. That's fine, she replies without hesitation. A nearby knight spots her, eyes widening at the sight of her red hair. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. In an instant, she yanks off her hat, tossing it like bait, and declares to the clerk that she'll take the ticket. She then quickly starts running, and they scream to someone that she is hurting for the southbound train and not to lose her. She forces herself to run faster, knowing she absolutely cannot get caught. They quickly lose sight of her, then shout in frustration that the suspect has escaped. Assuming she's boarded the southbound train, they order it to be stopped immediately, but it's already pulling out of the station. They run after it, but she's hidden just behind the corner wall. Only when they're out of view does she slip out and head toward the train bound for the capital. As she steps onto it, she lets out a quiet sigh of relief. She thinks the fact that the departure times were similar must have been divine luck, or maybe it's this body's doing. She wonders what kind of training did its owner undergo? It has been 10 years, so much has changed. What is she supposed to do? She soon arrived in the capital and checked into an inn on 2nd Street. She doesn't know what kind of danger the original owner of this body was involved in, and yet inside the luggage were dozens of forged IDs and a firearm. One ID read Bellelay. It sounds close to her name, so it will do for now. She's relieved that she didn't choose to open the bag back at the doctor's house. On the other hand, Victor asks Ian, isn't he worried? Ian draws worried about what? He points out the informant he was waiting hasn't made contact. Whether they are captured, killed, or tortured into spilling their secrets. Ian smiles and casually says worrying won't change a thing. Victor thinks he's not wrong, but still. His thoughts are jolted when Ian suddenly places a hand on his chest, silently gesturing for him to stay quiet. Victor wonders if they have a tail. He has never been in actual combat before, but then he reminds himself he's not alone. Beside him stands the war hero Ian Rapellis. But to his surprise, Ian suddenly shouts at him to run, and they both take off. Ian asks quickly, how many? Victor glances back and answers 6 in total. The weight of the situation settles in fast. 6 pursuers. Fighting while protecting Victor would be nearly impossible. Without hesitation, Ian says he'll draw them to the left and tells Victor to retreat to the right. But when Victor calls out that one of them has a gun, Ian simply pulls out his own. 4 of them follow Ian. He takes down 2, and the remaining 2 become restless. He stands against the window of the building, then suddenly leaps down from above, slamming into the man with full force. Pinning him down, he presses the gun to his head and demands, where is Miss Aileen Nova? The man asks in a shaky breath, Aileen? Ian repeats, red-brown hair, green eyes. He was ordered to pursue her, wasn't he? The man stammers he hasn't caught her yet. She hasn't been captured or killed, so she's still on the run. Or maybe, he pushes the thought back, hoping it isn't betrayal. After Ian finishes them off, he strolls out of the alley and remarks that 2 were too much for Victor. They will need to train harder once they return. Victor blurts out an apology, frozen in place with a gun pressed firmly to his head. The man beside him warns in a low voice not to move or speak carelessly. He adds that if Ian takes another step, he will shoot. Ian keeps his tone steady, saying very well, they should talk peacefully, then drops his gun and tells the man to do the same. But a second man steps up behind Ian and says he refuses, pressing a knife to his neck. Ian warns them they will regret this. Maybe not to him, but this young man is Marquis Victor's heir. If he's injured or dies, there will be consequences. The man behind him suddenly raises his dagger, but before he can strike, Ian drops to his knees, snatches up the fallen gun, and fires, hitting the man holding Victor hostage. Victor rushes after him, breathless, asking if he's all right. His arm is injured, but he brushes it off with a calm reply, "Never mind that. What matters is, it seems Aileen hasn't been captured." He guesses with this much pursuit, she must have escaped to another area to hide. They arranged a secondary rendezvous point for situations like this, so they should head there. He declares from this point on, they head straight to the capital. Meanwhile, on the other hand, a lady calls after the Countess, accusing her of mocking her. She smiles and replies she would never. She was merely concerned Lady Bate might be embarrassed, so she offered some advice. She turns around and begins to say that since she grabbed her like this, she might as well add, but then the crowd starts pouring in. With a smile, she says, "Oh, they've arrived just in time." The people watch as she continues, remarking that someone of Kane's fame is far too well known to be frequenting her saloon, wouldn't she say? Lady Bate replies that she asked him multiple times. Rita quickly cuts in, noting that means she's met him several times. Lady Bate fires back, of course she has. To persuade him, she had to meet him. People start talking about it, making her smirk. She then tells her she hopes that precious connection lasts a long time. As she reaches the carriage, the maid asks her which gaming club shall she escort her to today. She decides to go to Francois Knight. She heard they secured a limited edition wine. Margarita Grey, the third wife of Count Grey, infamous for her promiscuity. A woman of unknown origin who lucked her way into the role of wife. A mysterious and beautiful lady praised by famous figures across every field for her eloquence and knowledge. All those words describe the current Margarita. She finds herself surrounded by men, all chiming in that they've long hoped to meet her. She smiles at them politely, playing the part, but inside, only one thought runs through her mind: who was truly involved in her mother's death? It may have been Count Grey who framed her, but he must have accomplices. Anyone who played even the slightest role in it, she will kill them all. Meanwhile, Isabel arrives at the Huron capital Grey townhouse. She apologizes to Rita for being late, but Mom is here now. She enters the room where the head maid sits, interviewing for a temp maid position. Marcia tells her to state her name, age, and experience. She replies she's Belle Allett. She's 26 years old. She has worked for 10 years, but the lady she served suddenly passed away, so she couldn't get a letter of recommendation. Marcia comments if 10 years, then she must know the mixture ratio for wooden floor polish. She replies a quarter cup of wax to half a cup of turpentine. Marcia then asks what about polishing a stove rim? She replies wipe the metal part with graphite. She fires off a string of questions, all of which are answered with confidence. At last, she says she's passed, then orders her to find Mary outside. Just then, the door swings open and a maid rushes in, urgently announcing that the lady is already on her way back. Marcia wastes no time in ordering the maid to gather everyone on the first floor, then tells Belle to follow Mary, change clothes, and return immediately. As they all scatter toward the first floor, one of the maids comments that the ladies returned rather early today. Another replies that she knows, today must not have been any fun for her. Isabel thinks the child who used to sleep in is out so late now. Just then, a maid turns to her with a friendly smile and says she must be new, right? The girl introduces herself as Belle, adding that she is just hired. The other girl laughs softly and introduces herself as Ellie, mentioning it looks like they'll be roommates. Her room is the only one with space left. But then the head maid calls for silence. Ellie quickly asks one last question, if she can invite a friend over later. The head maid replies of course, without hesitation. Isabel replies of course, thinking it would be good to befriend the longtime staff and gather information. As the door opens, silence falls and all the maids bow their heads the moment Margarita walks in. Isabel knows she is no longer a child locked away, but the sharp clicking of her heels makes it all feel real again. She thinks 10 years it was too long. Her steps halt just before her. She lifts her head and remarks a face she hasn't seen before. Must be a new maid. Isabel thinks she thought she would always stay a child. When did she grow up like this? She can also see she has put on quite a thick layer of powder under her eyes. Is she really the girl mom knew? She finally introduces herself as Belle Allet. Margarita remarks her eyes are truly beautiful. She begins to walk off but halts mid-step at the unexpected remark by Isabel saying her eyes are far more beautiful. She smirks in response. Isabel only watches in sadness. Later, Ellie is in a frenzy, exclaiming that she's unbelievably lucky saying something like that to Madame and walking away untouched. Isabel asks if Madame didn't like it. Ellie replies very much so. When Madame arrived, all the maids who flattered her got fired one by one. She asks how many was it in total. Ellie replies 23, however she didn't seem that angry today. Isabel realizes she replaced the staff after becoming the Countess. But then Ellie claps her hands, declaring it's time for a proper introduction. She is Ellie Smith, 21 this year. Beside her, Hannah grins wide. She is 11. They then ask her how old is she? She says 26. Hannah exclaims that makes her 4 years younger than her mom. Belle smiles and asks her where is her mom. She replies her mom works far away. Isabel thinks a young maid would normally work with her mother. She begins to ask, but Ellie interrupts with a soft, somber call. Isabel glances at her, then at the girl beside her, smiling quietly. That's when it hits her. The child's mother is dead. Later, Ellie returns to her room, so Isabel asks if she took Hannah back to her room safely. She replies of course. She even watched her fall asleep like an angel. But then Belle questions why is she hiding her mother's death. She's not too young to not understand. Ellie admits they have told her several times, but every time she forgets, and no matter how many times they tell her, she asks again the next morning. Hannah's mother died in a carriage accident, and actually, Hannah was there too and she saw it with her own eyes. But the child still cannot accept her mother's death, so she keeps trying to forget it. Isabel asks her when does she think Hannah will accept it. She replies, who knows? Her mother also passed away early due to a severe illness. Even now, wildflowers remind her of how she loved them. And on thunderous nights, she misses her lullabies. No matter how much time passes, they don't want to accept the death of someone precious, so she guesses they will leave and miss them for a lifetime. Isabel thinks a lifetime? Trapped in that memory. She asks Ellie then what if her mother had died unfairly? Just hypothetically, if she were murdered, would she seek revenge? She adds even if her parents never wanted that. Even if they didn't want her to live in hatred or stain her hands with blood. Even if they wanted her to forget them and just live happily. Ellie admits she doesn't know, but she still thinks she would seek revenge. But then she tells Isabel to think the other way. What if she was the parent nor the child? And what if her child died unfairly? Old images come rushing in, overwhelming her. It's Ellie's light touch that brings her back to the moment. Ellie says she doesn't know about her past or situation. But is she afraid someone around her will fall into revenge? But even if revenge isn't fulfilled, it can still be a driving force in life. She believes they are doing it just because they want to continue living. Isabel thinks is that so? For Rita, revenge is the meaning of life? Should she not stop her then? But Rita, even with thick makeup, the shadows under her eyes couldn't be hidden. Meanwhile, in the capital Huron and in 9 Karenko Street. After searching that place, when they don't find the man they're looking for, they guess maybe he hasn't arrived in the capital yet. Ian thinks maybe she has already captured or betrayed them, but still they are not considering that. Ian asks what should they do then? Victor replies, does he really have to say it? Ian asserts of course, they cannot neglect the training requested personally by Marquis Victor. Victor suggests while they wait for news, should they continue their previous investigation. Ian questions where in the capital or back in the Duchy of Mirabelle? But he replies, no need to go back. There must be a proud prince family in the capital too, like the Duke of Mirabelle. Ian questions which family is it. He pulls his hair, trying to recall it. But then he shows him the invitation saying they even got it. He replies that is right, the Count Grey's family. Victor bolts and Ian can't help but think he's running off before more questions come. He pulls out a necklace and stares at it. Ever since they stood against the Crown Prince, he's known their paths would cross again. On the day he was dragged to the battlefield, he vowed he would survive and take revenge on Count Grey, who erased his precious one from this world. He will carry out his revenge for Isabel. Last night, Rita appeared in Isabel's dream. On the day she died, she told her to stay hidden until she returned. A 10-year-old child left waiting endlessly for her mother to come back. After spending days and nights in silence, she must have eventually realized that her mother wasn't coming back. She wonders how long did her daughter wait for her? No matter how much she shouted until her voice went hoarse, it was all in pain. All she has are the membranes that returned after she died. Isabel cannot even begin to imagine her 10 years. Marcia tells all the maids to focus. Sir Ian and Victor are visiting today, and as scheduled, the formal dinner will be held this evening. A sharp pain shoots through Isabel's head, and she grabs it with a wince. It is probably because of the poison. She hopes the painkillers kick in soon. Marcia then turns to her and asks how much experience does she have entertaining nobles. She replies not very much, but Marcia asks her if she has done it before. She replies yes. Good enough, Marcia declares, giving her a light push in the direction of the reception. She tells her to get the details from Ellie. Ellie is waiting for her with her new uniform and tells her to change into her guest reception uniform. Isabel asks her what is going on here. She replies Lily, who was originally in charge of welcoming guests, fell down the stairs on the second floor yesterday. She hit her head and she is still unconscious, but she has been talking nonsense, claiming that she saw a ghost. Ellie pleads with her to help them just this once and asks if she's all dressed. Isabel cannot bring herself to say that she has a headache. She grabs Isabel's hand and pulls her along, ignoring her protests that there's still time. Ellie says there isn't. The guest arrived early. Outside, the mansion gates swing open. Isabel catches a glimpse from the window as Ian enters. Later, a maid quietly serves him a cup of freshly brewed tea. Isabel has heard those names before when she used to serve Countess Diana. The Marquis of Victor family has an heir named Sir Victor, and the next Count of Repellis is a young man named Ian. This is information from 15 years ago, before she died. In the battle for imperial succession, the Grey family and the Mirabelle Duchy support the Crown Prince. The House of Count Repellis and the House of Marquis Victor were the factions supporting the third prince. But after the death of his older brother, the second prince, the third prince suffered a mental breakdown, and even injured his leg, making his chances of inheriting the throne nearly zero. Everyone believed that her prince and his supporters and Repellis and Victor were finished. Yet for some reason now the third prince has returned and is in open conflict with the crown prince. However, she wonders, why is the Grey family involved? Isn't this place supposed to be hostile territory for them? More importantly, Count Ian looks familiar. She finds it strange because she is not the type to forget faces. Softly resolved green hair, light brown eyes with a smooth gaze. He is definitely familiar, but she cannot quite place where from. Or is she just imagining things? But then their eyes lock. She flinches. She drops her gaze, wondering what was that just now. He also wonders if she just looked at him. He then places the tea down, saying it is too hot for his taste. Could he trouble them for a glass of water instead? This is a cold, clear expression, meaning the tea tastes bad, so just bring water. Victor tries to stop him, saying he can still drink it, but Ian merely gestures for silence. Then, turning to Isabel with a polite smile, he asks for a glass of water. Isabel steadies her breath, trying to calm herself, as she pours and serves him. But just as she sets the glass down, Ian knocks the teacup toward the edge deliberately. Her hand shoots out, catching it before it falls. His smirk widens, and in that instant, she understands. Her body reacted on instinct. That was her mistake. He had been testing her. She tells herself to stay calm. If he notices her trembling, it is over. Victor quickly gets to his feet, mouth wide open. He blurts out her reaction speed is not normal. While Ian exclaims she saved him, he must tell the Countess her praise. What is her name? She replies, Belle Allet. She is certain now. Thank you, he says, calling her name. In that moment, it dawns on her. This man knows the true owner of this body. She thinks, what is their relationship? He then casually adds he must ask the Countess for a favor to assign her as his banquet aide. While her thoughts race, what kind of connection do they share? An ally or enemy? If he is an ally, he will question why he is here instead of doing her duties. If he's an enemy, he will use the charge to kill or capture her and torture her. Either way, this is the worst case scenario for her. She hasn't even had a proper conversation with Rita yet, but she dismisses those thoughts away. It is too early to give up. Her thought drifts to how he intentionally dropped the glass to test her reaction. That means he isn't fully certain just by looking. He must only know the original by name or portrait at best, and even that, perhaps he barely remembers. In that case, she can still fool him. Later, when Ian and Victor are alone, he questions what was that about earlier? That wasn't very like him, but Ian gestures at him to be quiet. He walks over to the window and remarks, even if they were invited, this is an enemy territory, so he needs to lower his voice. Ian then asks in a low voice if he remembers the hair and eye color of the maid who held the glass. He replies reddish-brown hair and green eyes. He leans in closer, telling him if that reminds him of anything. He blurts out Aileen Nova. Ian admits just having reddish-brown hair and green eyes doesn't make her Aileen. Victor points out that is what he's thinking, isn't it? He says him? Based on what? Victor asks another quiz. Ian thinks he's still young, but at 19 he should start noticing things on his own. He finally says because of her name, Belle Allett. Ian replies correct. Forged identities often incorporate real familial ties to make them more believable. Allett is his mother's maiden name. If the fake identity is exposed, it could cause a scandal. But who would dare question the Countess of Repellis? Ian adds that forged name had a very specific purpose, to infiltrate as a noble, using the faintly noble lineage of the Allett name. Victor counters, but the person they met today was a maid. Ian admits that is the problem. Why would someone use a forged noble identity just to get hired as a maid? And if she was in the capital, why didn't she show up at the meeting point? Victor asks if they should start to consider her a suspect. He decides to observe more during the formal banquet, thinking if she killed Noah and took her place, she would intentionally try to get closer to them, but since he never actually met her, he cannot be sure. Victor asks if they should be prepared to shed blood, but Ian thinks he's still too young. He sincerely hopes it won't come to that. At the time of the banquet, the guests start coming. Isabel thinks she's now longtime friends with Ellie, who's from the capital, so now she has never even been to the south, let alone taken a train. A knife is tucked under her clothes, her last resort if things go wrong, but she hopes she won't have to. Count Ian and Victor step in just then. The Count raises his drink and extends endless gratitude to everyone who honored this banquet with their presence. They have done their utmost to ensure nothing is lacking. Isabel watches the Count with a troubled gaze. During dinner, a man shouts that those filthy beggars committing crimes on the streets day and night should all be thrown into camps to make the roads cleaner. Ian tells him calmly to lower his voice, but the man only smirks and asks if the topic makes the young Count uncomfortable. Isabel thinks, perfect, now he won't have time to notice her as Ian keeps pouring the drink until it spills over, then raises his glass and thanks the Baron for his lesson, proposing a toast to his deep concern for society, though the droplets from the drink shoot straight into the Baron's eyes. And with a faint smirk, Ian remarks that he has made another mistake before glancing at Belle and asking if she would help him again. Won't she? She quickly says no, it is fine, she will call the Baron's attendant. But he tells her she needs to stay here and look after her. Isabel thinks no way. Did he do it on purpose? He raises his hand and gestures for the maid standing nearby, telling her that the Baron looks like he could use some rest. But as she steps toward him, the Baron suddenly recoils, shouts that it stinks. She calmly guides him to the resting area. He then asks her to bring him some water. He drank too as much and he's quite thirsty. Belle realizes the Baron is dealt with. Now it is her turn. She steadies herself and lifts the jug to pour, but he abruptly pushes the glass aside. Leaning in closer, he whispers she's trembling so visibly, she should calm herself. She tells herself to get it together. He's testing her. Her heart is racing too much. He will notice. He remarks she must be new to maid work. She seems very nervous. She thinks there is still a chance to play this off and replies it is true, this is her first time serving high-ranking nobles. She has been a maid for a while, but she is sorry if she has fallen short. Ellie, who is watching the scene, quickly steps in, apologizing on her behalf, saying she has worked with her a long time but she has never served guests this important before. He teases, so that is why her hands are so sweaty. He didn't even mean to undermine her existence. He tells her no need for water and thanks her. Later, she checks her hand, thinking she is seriously drenched in sweat. She thinks, what should she do? Should she prepare to escape now? Either way, she doesn't want to use the knife. Meanwhile, Rita leans in toward the Count and murmurs that she thinks it's time to change locations, so what does he say? He smiles at her, saying if it is what she wishes, then of course. Isabel looks away, thinking she cannot look. Margarita then announces they will escort their esteemed guests to the game room. They have prepared wine gifted by His Highness the Crown Prince, so they should enjoy it together. Ian raises his hand slightly and politely asks if he can fetch the wine from the cellar himself. Now that Margarita thinks about it, she recalls he has also prepared something amazing. She cannot wait to see it. He replies yes. From a renowned vineyard in a neighboring duchy, a limited edition wine brewed at its founding, he went to great lengths to secure a small quantity. One of the nobles remarks it is even rarer than His Highness's wine. The other warns him he should be careful saying things like that. He announces he will be back shortly and so they should enjoy themselves first. Belle considers slipping out meanwhile, but then he calls over his shoulder, reminding her she's coming with him, isn't she? His assigned maid. She follows him down the stairs. In the end, once you are lured to a secluded place, you have to be ready to swing the knife. But she doesn't know how much her body will cooperate. She snaps out of her thoughts with a jolt when she bumps into him. He stands in front of the door and remarks casually that she was so deep in thought, she didn't even notice passing him. It's only now she realizes if she wants to get out of here, she'll have to face him directly. A completely closed door, one-on-one with a man bigger than her. Can she even escape? She gasps, eyes widening as her breath comes in quick, shallow bursts. Her body spirals out of control, and she doesn't know why. Then, a voice slips into her mind, instructing her to lift her arm, stretch out fully, and pull with all the strength she has. When awareness returns, the door is open. He opened the door? She doesn't know what memory that was, or whose voice it was. She doesn't know right now. But one thing is clear. She is not afraid because he is a man. She's afraid as she's alone with a noble man. She wonders why. Is it something to do with this body? Ian asks if she's afraid of enclosed spaces, offering her his handkerchief, noticing how much she's sweating. Then, with a calm but direct tone, he says, "Now, Miss Belle-Allet." She answers, "Yes, Count Repellus," but he tells her to call him Sir Ian. He decides to be blunt. He tells her plainly that he's convinced she is Aileen Nova. Is he wrong? Her thoughts race. Even if she denies it, would he believe her? He declares the false identity she is using, Belle-Allet, that is the proof. She watches in shock, wondering if he knows this body's fake identity. Then this person must be the ally who has created that fake identity. He using her name she's familiar with, so no matter what he does she will have to be suspicious. Now she knows the moment she used that identity, this outcome was only a matter of time. She finally says to be honest, she has lost her memory. He blurts out, what does she mean? She states just as she said when she woke up, she couldn't remember anything. If he were the enemy, he would have killed her back then when she couldn't breathe. She admits it is hard to believe, but she is not even sure if she is Aileen. She's relieved he's an ally now she doesn't have to use the knife. He exhales quietly, murmuring, "I see," before suddenly lunging at her, a knife flashing in his hand. She quickly pulls out her own knife and aims at him, telling him not to come any closer. She queries if they are enemies and demands an answer. He drops his knife and admits he didn't mean to harm her. He was testing her and says the knife wasn't even drawn from its sheath. Judging by her movements, she really is Aileen Nova. Her stance, reactions, response all follow their family's method. She was clearly trained by his mother herself. He clarifies it was just to confirm he apologizes for threatening her. He then lowers his head in apology. She cannot help but think if in her whole life has she ever been apologized to so politely by a noble. Bowing her head was always the job of a maid like her. She thanks him for apologizing. To him, it seems like she really has lost her memory. Of course, he's an ally and his apology is sincere, but he warns her not to go trusting an enemy's world so easily, and also adds continuing to use a forged ID was a risky decision. If that ID had been wanted, it could have been serious. He tells her to talk in more detail another time, and with a smile adds they should head back now, calling her by her name Noah. She watched in surprise, wondering what was that. Why does that smile feel so warm and familiar? Could she have met this person in a past life? But then why doesn't she remember? That night, she had a nightmare. She sits trembling on the floor in front of the man. He asks her if she has been behaving. Oh dear, she cannot answer if she keeps her mouth shut like that. He grabs her face harshly, declaring, didn't he say it wouldn't be fun? Her eyes snap open. A man whose face she couldn't see threatened her with a gentle voice in the dream. It felt vivid, like reality, but she cannot recall if it actually happened in her past. Maybe when her body changed, some of her original memories were lost. The next day, she knocks on Ian's door just as he pulls open the curtains and remarks she is here. He assures her that both him and Victor will avoid the water, so she doesn't need to worry. It was a thoughtful gesture, but the time afterward was like sitting on thorns. As she sits before him in the study room, she wonders why isn't he giving her anything to do? She hesitates and asks about the laundry, but he says it is fine and insists she rest comfortably. She offers to pour tea for Victor, but he blurts out he can pour it himself. She barely gets the word snacks out before he practically launches them at her, asking if she wants any. She throws up her hands instinctively. She finally realizes this is their way of making sure she doesn't do anything, and that they still don't trust her. But then Ian gets up, apologizing for letting her sit idle like this. He didn't consider it. Let him get her something to read. He hands over a book to her, saying there's nothing better than a history book to pass the time. She opens the book and is, despite the covers being in the Margaret language, the pages inside are all foreign. She turns to him and says she will read it slowly. They really won't stop testing her. He then says for the next few days she doesn't need to come. He will be going out. She wonders if by telling her he's going out like this, he trying to see if she will try to run away. She tells him to have a good trip. Ian says he hopes she will spend her time well while he's away. Later, when she returns to her room, she's welcomed by Ellie and Hannah. Ellie knows dealing with nobles is exhausting, isn't it? Originally, this was supposed to be Lily's job. She smiles and says it is okay, it is more manageable than she thought. However, her mind feels more tired than her body. Still, Ellie doesn't understand why Lily suddenly quit. She wasn't the type to be so irresponsible. But then Hannah chimes and she doesn't know? Lily ran away because she was scared of a ghost. A giggle escapes Isabel as she thinks that sounds like something a child would say. Ellie tells her not to say that if she keeps spreading lies like that, Madame Dinalda will scold her badly. But she insists it is not a lie she heard Lily say she saw a ghost. But then Ellie sternly tells her she told her to stop. She grumbles whatever and makes a face at Ellie, declaring she hates her. Isabel says, "So, it is that nonsense about the maid named Lily from before." Ellie replies she has a good memory. But just then, as Hannah is storming down the hallway, she screams that it's not a lie. Ellie admits it is true. After she collapsed on the stairs, she kept talking about ghosts. They tried to stop Hannah from talking because Madame Dinalda told them to keep quiet. Isabel guesses if they leave it alone, maybe it will die down on its own. Ellie says that would be fine if more people were not thinking about quitting because of it. What Lily said wasn't just that she saw a ghost. She said the ghost is going to kill them all. Ellie never saw it for herself, but according to a maid who did, she said the tone was so desperate it was chilling. As the story spread, it became increasingly exaggerated, with the talk about the manor being cursed and that they should quit immediately. According to the head maid, it has become a wildly distorted rumor. If more maids quit after this, the rumors will surely spread outside too. That is why the head maid is trying to shut everyone up strictly. Ellie adds once Olga returns, she will probably sort it all out. The name catches her attention and she quickly asks if that person's name is Olga by any chance. Ellie replies that her name is Ista Olga, and at that, a smile lights up her face. She didn't think anyone she knew would still be here after 10 years. And to think it's Olga. She was the one who took her out of the slums where she had been living alone and helped her become a maid in this manner. She is a benefactor, a teacher, and an old friend. But then it hits her, in this body she cannot even greet her as someone she recognizes. Now that Ellie thinks about it, this is her first time meeting Ogla, isn't it? And she wants her to be really careful. Isabel quickly asks about what? She replies about Ogla. She is really scary. The next day all the maids face Ogla, who remarks that while she was gone she heard Lily quit. With her head lowered, Isabel wonders what kind of overwhelming presence has taken over. The Ogla in her memory had a foul mouth and sometimes said crude things. But she looked after everyone and had a fun way of speaking, so everyone is admired and followed her. She was that kind of person. But now she fixes the maids with a stern look and says everyone should know that she and Lily used to clean Madame's room. They still need someone to fill in for a few days. But no one steps forward until Isabel raises her hand and declares she will do it. Ogla calls her a newbie and tells her to follow her. She then leads her to the Madame's bedroom and instructs her to dust everything. She can't help but recall their first encounter, when Ogla had looked at her and asks what is her name. Isabel reflects on how much she's changed since then. She wonders what could have happened to Ogla during the 10 years she was dead. The room has changed as well. Back when she was Madame's personal maid, this was the room she cleaned more than her own. The wallpaper, which must have been stripped and replaced several times, and the lifted seams. the faded ceiling and some pieces of replaced furniture. The old desk used by Master Countess Diana. She was almost always writing or reading novels and poems. She used to disguise herself as a comrade and attend literary salons and was considered eccentric by the nobles. A master who was unusually humble and frugal for a noble. She snaps out of her thoughts when Ogle snaps at her not to just stand there, take the carpet and shake it out. She does exactly as instructed while thinking Ogle is pretty blunt. But then her gaze lands on something. It is a long, dark red stain that runs like a line. Ogle rushes over, hastily throwing a blanket over the bed. She tells her firmly that there's nothing in this room she's allowed to be curious about. Isabel knows whatever that mark is, the intent to hide it is way too obvious. She is determined to come back and check it again later. But after that, she was immediately removed from the bedroom and suddenly assigned to the busy kitchen, making it hard to find the moment to investigate in secret. At the lunch break she is consumed with thoughts, knowing once Count Repellus returns she will have to go back there, so she absolutely has to investigate before then. Ellie walks up beside her and casually says she came to eat lunch too. This is the first time Isabel has ever seen her eat on time. Ellie whines that taking care of the noble takes a lot of effort. She usually eats late, but today Madame is holding a luncheon, so only the maids assigned to it were called in. Thanks to that, she gets to rest a bit. Isabel realizes that means Madame's bedroom is currently empty, and with Ogle and the handmaid just beginning their meal, this is her chance. She knows that throwing away untouched food will only raise suspicion, so she tells Ellie she's not feeling well and that if she cleans up now, it'll make everyone worry. Could Ellie take care of it later? Ellie agrees without question. After assuring her she'll feel better soon, Isabel slips away and begins running toward the bedroom, her heart pounding. For some reason, the hallway feels longer than usual. The room is dark and silent, confirming it's empty. If it were just a stain, replacing the mattress and sheets should have been enough, but they restricted access, which means that isn't the case. She yanks the blanket back and freezes. It's not just a one-time accident. It is blood. It's clearer than before. It is new. Could it be torment? Is Count Grey hurting Rita? But the Count she knows would never do this, not to his wife, not to his mistresses or anyone. She sinks to her knees, just thinking that is blood making her head split. She hurries toward the door, desperate to leave before anyone shows up, but just then, it creaks open, and Margarita steps inside. Belle has a frightened look on her face as Margarita greets her. Margarita steps in while stating that she wasn't feeling well, so she left in the middle of the meal. She asks Belle for cigars and lighters, but then mentions that she as a new maid wouldn't know where she keeps her cigars. Belle apologizes to her and mentions that she lost something while cleaning here yesterday, so she just came to look for it for a moment. Margarita lit up her cigar and asks her what exactly did she lose. She responds that it was a turquoise ring and she still hasn't found it. Margarita asks, really? Isn't it infertility pills, poison, or dead animal parts?